Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. So we seek the grace of Bhagavan Shri Krishna, blessings of Gurudev, to continue our Sthitaprajna Lakshana. We will read today from verse number 61, 62, and 63. We'll review a little bit, and then we'll move forward. We'll chant together. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashe hi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bhijayate krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha buddhinashat pranashyati. We read 64 also, so let's read that. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayanindriyaischaran atmavashyer vidheyatma prasadhamadhigacchati. So we are in this portion of Bhagavad Gita, which is called Sthitaprajna Lakshana. This is one of the most important portions of the Bhagavad Gita, and very, very beautiful also. And this portion is about a person who is established in the knowledge of the self. Sthitaprajna. Prajna means wisdom, knowledge of what? The self. Sthita means somebody who's steady, who's established in that. And Arjuna asks Lord Krishna, Sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha? Please tell me about this Sthitaprajna. Samadhistasya Keshava, the one who's practicing samadhi. Sthitaprajna, how does he or she speak? How do they sit? And how do they interact in the world? So these are the three questions that Arjuna asks Sri Krishna. And with regards to how the Sthitaprajna speaks, Kim Prabhasheta, Kimasita, Vrajeta Kim. How does the Sthitaprajna speak? We saw that the Sthitaprajna speaks out of equanimity. Their speech is coming from this stand of equanimity. So they're not unnecessarily elated or saddened. They're not bothered by praise or blame, and their speech does not reflect some kind of hate or violence or unnecessary anger. It doesn't reflect all of these things. It comes from that purity, that equanimity. Most of all, it comes from love. Doesn't mean that they're not harsh at times or that they won't tell us off at times. Their speech comes from love. All they want to do is to see how we can be enlightened, how we can evolve to a higher state. Then we saw how a Sthitaprajna sits. And how a Sthitaprajna sits, of course, is withdrawing their sense organs from the sense objects of the world. So withdrawing all of that and keeping it in the self. This is how they sit. And we saw that sometimes we're able to do that. We're able to sit quietly and we're fine. But again, we want to go out. And why is that? Because for us, we have what's called rasa. We have that taste. We still desire the objects of the world. So that rasa or that taste, it makes us go out again and again. But for the Sthitaprajna, even that taste has gone. There is no thirst, taste, hunger for the objects, for the relationships, for the experience of the world, because they have found the bliss in themselves. So even that rasa has gone. So now we are in that topic of last few verses we saw last year, that we should, therefore, the seeker should make all the effort to get that get our sense objects enlivened, enlightened, and kept in the higher. And so in verse 61, he says, therefore, O seeker, control or master all of your senses. And how do you do that? You know, we hear so often, master the senses, but how do you do that? He says here, mat paraha. Mat paraha. Mat there means to God, to Bhagavan. Paraha, have God as the goal. Have God as the altar. Guruji always says, an altar in life alters our life. It's not easy to control, to restrain our senses. But when we have love for the higher, when we have love for truth, when we have love for wisdom, when we have love for God, all of this happens automatically. You see, Sthitaprajna has that realization of the self, reveling in bliss, has complete detachment. Now we as seekers, how do we go to being that? How do we go to being that state? And it all starts with the restraint or the control of our sense organs. We will see in the verses coming up, if we're not able to master our sense organs and our mind, it becomes very difficult to gain and abide in this knowledge. So therefore, in verse 61, he says, mat paraha. The dharma of the seeker is to keep your mind in the higher. Keep your mind in God. Keep your mind in love for wisdom, for truth. And when that mind is kept at such an elevated place, mastery happens automatically. We don't even have to put forth effort. It just happens. It just happens. And, we see how people who are engaged in their dharma, people who are very dharma nishta, who are engaged in their duties, their discipline automatically happens because they know these are the things that they have to do in life. This is their daily dharma. And so when they have these daily duties to perform, they stick with it. And so they become very disciplined. Another great thing that has the power to discipline us is the name of God. We've talked about this before, but there is a deep power in chanting the name of God. It is very, very powerful. It brings a lot of love, a lot of discipline, a lot of consistency, a lot of purity. So somebody who's nishtha or established in that becomes very easy to be disciplined. So when we say matparaha here, find what is your altar that's going to make you very disciplined. Because that is the first step of any seeker. Without that, we cannot hope to move forward. It will be very, very difficult on the path. So to go from being a seeker to being sthita or siddha, this indriya, nigraha, control of the senses and mind is an absolute must. In verse 62 and 63, he says, what happens if we slip? What happens if our mind and our senses are not kept in the higher? Then he brings the ladder of fall. So we saw the 4 da, right? First, we dwell on an object, on the world, worldly object. We dwell on it. Then what happens is attachment arises. We feel that if we get that particular object or experience or person, we will become happy. Therefore, desire comes. We want it, and we really, really want to get it. And the fact is, sometimes we won't get it. Sometimes we won't get what we want. And when that happens, anger. And when anger happens, it's very, very difficult not to be deluded. We become deluded. Our thinking, our words are so indiscriminate. We say things we don't mean. We do things we don't mean. And because of that, there's amnesia. We forget that we are sincere seekers on the path. We forget everything that we've learned. We forget everything that we've been through. And because there's forgetfulness, there's the destruction of the intellect, of buddhi. It cannot work anymore. The intellect works on memory, and it cannot work anymore. And because of that, there's annihilation, or we become like animals. So he says here, be very, very careful, because this so-called dwelling on an object, it might seem quite harmless, but this consistent dwelling in the world can lead to all of these things. Therefore, matparaha, keep the mind in the higher. That's the trick. That's all you and I have to do. Then we saw now just a brief intro on 64. So today I will explain this verse, the next few verses. So he finished the 2 questions. How does a Sthitaprajna speak? How does a Sthitaprajna sit? Now he goes into how a Sthitaprajna walks or interacts in the world. So what he says here is, this Sthitaprajna, first of all, is vidheyatma. Vidheyatma in verse number 64 means somebody who's self-controlled. Atma here means mind. So somebody who has mastered their mind and senses. Why? Because they have a higher goal. They have their minds are soaked in the name of God. So they are vidheyatma. Prasadam adhigacchati. They gain peace. Those who are self-controlled, they gain peace. How? Charan. They move in this world. It's not like they're sitting in a cave and hiding and not going out. They're moving in this world. charan, and how indriyehi, with their senses, raga dvesha viyuktehi, free from raga and dvesha. Raga means attraction, dvesha means repulsion, of the vishayan, of the objects. So what we see here is the self-controlled moving amongst the objects with their senses under restraint and free from both attraction and repulsion, they attain peace. So what is this raga dvesha? And how does the Sthitaprajna move in this world? Raga is this strong attraction. When we see this word raga, strong attraction. Dvesha means strong revulsion or aversion. That's called dvesha. Now, how and why do we have these strong likes, strong dislikes? Why do we have these? These are based on our vasanas. So the more vasanas we have, the more likes and dislikes we have. So if you see in your life, what are the things you like? They will match your vasanas. So the kind of things you read, the kind of people you hang out with, the kind of things that you watch, they're all based on your vasanas. In the same way, the things that you dislike are based on your vasanas, right? You might dislike a certain kind of music, dislike a certain kind of food. That's also based on vasanas. So the more vasanas we have, the more of them we have, the more likes and dislikes we have in this world. Now, are likes and dislikes so bad? Yes. Answer is yes. Why? Because all of our time goes in the pursuit of likes and dislikes. When we wake up, we say, oh, this looks so good. I want to experience this. This looks so nice. I want to do this. This looks incredible. I want to go for this. And all of our likes draw us to action. They draw us to action. So all of our time and effort draws us to it. So much so that for one pickle, we will drive 30 minutes to some Patel store just to get that particular pickle because we like that particular pickle or that particular, I don't know, yogurt or something. We will drive so far just because we want that particular thing, that particular coffee, right? That particular thing we want. So how much time goes in the pursuit of what we like? Lots of time, lots of time. Equally, same amount goes to what we don't like. I don't like this person. So much time, so much energy goes in avoiding that person. I don't like to be in that certain place. So much energy goes in avoiding that certain place. Avoiding things that we dislike, it also takes up energy, also takes up time, also takes up space in the mind. Because you're thinking about, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to do this thing. I don't want to go here. I don't want to go there. So much mental energy. And so what happens with these strong likes and dislikes? Where's the time to think about truth, to think about God? There's no time. We're just being drawn by them every day. And we also become very, selective then, less accommodative. We only like this. We only like that. We narrow everything down and we're not open to different perspectives, to different ways of thinking. Now, is it possible to be completely free from likes and dislikes? No, because the mind will have likes and dislikes as long as it's there. But what happens for Sthitaprajna? It's very minimal. It's not so strong and so insistent. And it's not so, it doesn't take up so much time. It's quite minimal. And what is it like? What is it like? See, let's say you entered a toy store. Let's say you're holiday shopping, Diwali shopping for your children, grandchildren, whoever it is, your nieces, nephews. And you go to a toy store. Now, if you go to a toy store, Toys R Us, FAO Schwartz, wherever, you and I, when we go there, we're not so drawn to it, right? We're not so crazy about things. We're also not so averse to it. We're quite balanced in a toy store. We're not really like so excited to buy so many things, or we're not really like wanting to get out of there. We're quite Sthitaprajna there, right? But let's say if it was an electronics store or a clothing store or a store that we really liked, then we would be like, whoa, we want this, we want that, we want everything. For Sthitaprajna, the whole world is like a toy store. The whole world is really a toy store because they really know that nothing outside can really give them what they want. And everything outside of them is just really themselves. Everything is just, the whole world is superimposed on the self. Or the whole world is really just God in names and forms. So they don't feel the need to get so attracted to it or repulsed by it, because it's God after all. So to them, the whole world is like a toy store. They can just go here and there without such strong likes and dislikes. This is a Sthitaprajna. So when we say raga, dvesha, vyukte, free from that, very balanced, very calm. And it's not like they hide, they walk in the world. And atma vashyehi, keeping their mind always in control. Vidheyatma, a self-controlled person, being, prasadam adhikachati, attains a sense of peace because they're unmoved by anything else. So this is what this verse means. That this Sthitaprajna attains peace. Now, why is peace so important? See, nowadays, everyone is seeking peace. Everyone is seeking some form of peace or the other. We thought that we were coming out of the pandemic, and we thought that we would be able to travel and meet people, and then again, so many things have happened. And sometimes people can tend to get disturbed because they just want to go out, they just want to be with people, they just want to interact, and then they're not able to do that. So peace is something that we seek, and we think that just being around people, just meeting people, just going to another place, we think that can give us peace. But actually, peace lies within. We've heard this so many times, but we tend to forget it. And peace is so important because it helps us gain this knowledge and stay steady in this knowledge. So without this peace, we're not able to learn and we're not able to abide. So this is what we're going to see now in verse number 65. So I'll read and then you can repeat after me. Prasade sarva dukkhanam.
Prasade sarva dukkhanam.
Hanirasyopajayate.
Hanirasyopajayate.
Prasanna chetaso hyashu.
Prasanna chetaso hyashu.
Buddhih paryavatishtate.
Buddhi paryavatishtate.
Prasade sarva dukkhanam. Hanirasyopajayate. Prasanna chetaso hyashu. Buddhih paryavatishtate. So what it says here is this, prasade. So when one has that peace of mind, hanihi means nasha. Nasha means there's a destruction of what? Sarva dukkhana, there's a destruction of all sorrow. Upajayate, that destruction actually happens. Upajayate. And how prasanna chetasaha, of the one who is tranquil minded, ashu, very quickly, buddhi paryavatishtate, that intellect becomes steady. So in that peace, all pains are destroyed, for the intellect of the tranquil minded soon becomes steady. Okay, so let's look at what happens when we are at peace. So first step number 1 is the control or mastery of the mind and senses. That's step number 1. That will give us peace. That will give us peace, because we know that when we're not able to master our senses, our mind, we feel a lot of guilt. We feel a lot of regret. We feel double guilt, double regret, because we're seekers. We should know better, but yet again we fell, right? So ours is quite hard. We know we're not supposed to do it, and we did it, so we feel double the sorrow. So first step is mastery of the senses. How? Through matparaha. Remember, keeping the mind in the higher. After the mastery of the senses, what happens? Raga dvesha viyuktehi. You become sort of away from strong likes and dislikes, because your mind is kept in something higher. So it doesn't really bother you. You are at peace and at ease in whichever situation you are in. Then you get a sense of prasada. Your mind becomes calm. Your mind becomes calm. It's not restless. You know, like some days people will watch TV and they'll keep changing the channel, and 20 minutes goes by and there's like nothing they watch, right? Because the mind is so restless looking for something. This prasada means the mind is restful. You're not anymore looking for something. Your mind is quite calm. This calm mind is exactly what Vedanta needs, is precisely what Vedanta needs. It needs a prasada buddhi, a prasanna chetas. That's why when we go to the temple, right? We go to the temple and we meet Bhagavan's form. And after that, we get prasad. The whole idea is, by this whole exercise, may your mind now be calm and peaceful. And may your mind accept whatever you're going to get in the world. They give us a sweet, whether a laddu or kana, whatever they give us, any sweet. But the idea is that may you leave this temple with a very calm mind and a sense to accept with sweetness whatever the world is going to give you. That's the idea. That's the idea. And so that by going to a temple, we develop that pure and calm mind. Now, with this pure and calm mind, does all the sorrow disappear? No. The next step, the fourth step, buddhihi paryavatishtate. What happens is that pure mind can imbibe in the knowledge of the intellect. Pari means all around. Ava means firmly. Tishtate means that mind can really stay in the knowledge. See, when do we experience sorrow? Tell me, when do we experience sorrow? When we forget this knowledge, when we forget God, we experience sorrow. So anytime you and I are in sorrow, know one thing, it is because we have forgotten this knowledge or we have forgotten God. Then we will really be in sorrow. Sorrow is simply because of forgetfulness. But when the mind is calm and steady, there's always remembrance of that knowledge. There's abidance in that knowledge. Buddhi paryavatishtate, it stays there. And when it stays there, then there is absolutely no sorrow. There is no sorrow. There is no sorrow you can experience. I don't know if you saw, but we created a video of the year that just went by, 2021. And in that video, it was said there that when you live in God, even night becomes day. There might be so many things happening, so many disturbances, so much chaos. But really, when you live in God, even night becomes day. Even your most sorrowful moment really cannot be sorrow. This is what it means when sarva dukkhanam hani. It's sorrow. It might exist there. It might exist outside. But you cannot be sorrowful. You cannot become sorrowful. You all know, I'm sure, and I mentioned to the children in Bal Vihar this past weekend, we say Shanti 3 times because there's 3 tapas, the Adi Devika, right? There's some sorrow that can come from unseen forces, the earthquakes, hurricanes, storms, floods. So we say Shanti to have peace from those forces. The second Shanti, Adi Bhautika, to have peace from the forces around us, disease, death, noise, the sickness, anything happening in the family, the community. We say Shanti, please free us from those disturbances. The last Shanti is Adhyatmik, free us from the disturbances within. So from all of these disturbances, one can be free from them. When buddhi paryavatishtate, when there is absolute abidance in this knowledge, then we won't shake. This is what all of this does. So where does it start? Number 1, mastery of the senses and mind. That is an absolute must. Do not think of walking this path without mastering the senses and the mind. It just will not work very well. We will keep slipping and falling. So that is where sadhana comes in. We cannot just be sitting and listening to a Vedanta lecture. Deep reflection and deep spiritual practices have to happen. It's a must. If it does not happen, we cannot walk the path. That is for sure. So first step. Second step, raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes, will be very minimal. Third step, the mind becomes calm. Fourth step, when the mind is calm, it can abide in the knowledge. It can remember the knowledge. It can bathe and swim and sink in this knowledge. And when that happens, there is no scope to be sorrowful, even if sorrow happens outside of us. There is no scope to be caught up in it. That is the power of this teaching. Now, Lord Krishna says, what happens? Let me tell you what happens if you don't have that mastery of mind and senses. Let me tell you how, peace really won't be possible if we do not have this integration, this mastery. So this is what he touches upon now in verse number 66. So let us read. Nasti buddhira yuktasya.
Nasti buddhira yuktasya.
Nacha yuktasya bhavana.
Nacha yuktasya bhavana.
Nacha bhavayata shantehe.
Nacha bhavayata shantihi.
Ashantasya kutas sukham.
Ashantasya kutas sukham.
Nasti buddhira yuktasya. Nacha yuktasya bhavana. Nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. So, what does he say here? Na asti buddhihi ayuktasya. So, for the one who is ayukta, ayukta means unsteady, unintegrated, there is no knowledge of the self. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya. Nacha ayuktasya bhavana. And for the one who is not united with knowledge, there is no meditation. So number two, the one who is not united with knowledge, there's no meditation. Nacha abhavayata shantihi. And for the one who does not meditate, there is no peace. And ashantasya kutaha sukham. For the one who is not peaceful, there is no happiness. So when is happiness possible? When there is this integrated mind and intellect. So we'll go one by one. So it is said for the unsteady, the first point, for the unsteady, there is no knowledge. Yukta means steady or united, yoked. Ayukta means not united, not integrated, not steady. What is being united here? What needs to be united is the mind and the intellect. See, where a seeker has to work is here. When the intellect gets trained by Shastra, so let's say you have an intellect that's trained through satsang and through Shastra, that intellect is trained and it knows what it has to do. And most of us are in that situation where we have been listening and we know what we have to do. But the mind somehow does not follow through with the intellect. It somehow wants to go somewhere else. So the intellect will say, a voice inside us will say, wake up early, better wake up early so you can do your sadhana. But the mind will say, no, sleep, it's too cold, stay under the covers. The intellect will say, one must exercise, keep the body fit. The mind will say, no, why exercise? It's winter time, take a break, you don't have to do it. The intellect will say, eat healthy, eat sattvic food so that you're not, you don't sleep so much, you're not drowsy. The mind will say, no, but today there's pizza, right? So there's this constant battle inside of a seeker between this intellect and mind. And this happens. What has to happen here is the intellect has to take the reins. In Kathopanishad, it says the intellect is the sarathi, the charioteer, and the mind is the reins. So the intellect has to hold that mind and say, you have to come this way. We have to train that mind to follow that intellect. That's Shastra, learned intellect. That's sattvic intellect. The mind is like a spoiled child. It's used to doing whatever it wants. You want to go here? Okay. You want to sleep? Okay. You want to go there? Okay. It's like a spoiled child. It's been like so wild and free. So it's not used to this control. It doesn't like it. So that intellect with love, which is your higher intellect, has to yoke that mind. Our higher intellect has to yoke that mind. And this is something a seeker has to practice. Because as long as there's a disintegrated mind and intellect, it's very difficult to gain knowledge. It's very difficult to really apply that knowledge, as long as there is this kind of divorce between the two. So the first step is we have to find a way to put this together. Now, how do you do it? Now, one of the most effective ways I have found is to take up a vow of discipline. Now, whatever your vow might be, okay? Whatever it may be. Maybe your vow, now everybody's making New Year's resolution. So you take up a vow for a certain number of days that, okay, every day, let's say, I will wake up at 6 o'clock. Let's say this is one vow to take up. Now, what happens is you just try to stick to that. No matter what happens, just try sticking to it. We will see that to uphold one vow, one resolution, we have to do 5 other things. What happens? If we have to wake up at 6 a.m., what happens? It means we have to sleep early. It means we have to have a light dinner. It means we cannot be too active at night. So it means that our whole day has to be regulated. We have to eat lunch on time. Because if we eat lunch on very late, then dinner very late, we will for sure get up very late. So with one kind of vow that we take, 5 other things in our lives get organized automatically, because we're really just sticking to this vow. That becomes a very effective way to integrate the mind and the intellect. And what happens is the willpower grows stronger. And every time it grows stronger and stronger and stronger, and it becomes yukta. When the mind and the intellect are yukta, then that seeker is truly blessed, truly blessed. Because what happens is that knowledge will take place immediately. That knowledge will dawn. It will be so crystal clear. So it says here, without that mind and intellect being yoked, there won't be any knowledge. There won't be knowledge. So when the mind and intellect are yoked, there is knowledge. Now what happens? When there is union with the knowledge, then there is meditation. So it's saying it in the negative way, I'm saying it in the positive way. That the second yukta means when there is union with the knowledge, when now I have come to understand this knowledge, then one can meditate on it, contemplate on it. So many times people say, what do you sit and think about in the seat of meditation? What do you do? What you do is you bring that knowledge to mind. You bring that knowledge to mind. What knowledge? That you are that eternal self. You are that pure awareness. You are that in which all thoughts come and go, and you are completely free from that. You bring that knowledge to your mind and you sit with it. It doesn't matter if you sit 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, but sit with it. Sit with it and just let it settle down. We're not letting the knowledge settle down. That's why it's not getting deep. We gotta just sit with it, let it soak, let it simmer, let it, do everything, do what it has to do. But that only happens when we sit still. So when we are united with knowledge, then meditation can happen. And we will also want to meditate. Wanting to go in, wanting to be introverted, that also will happen. It will happen to a seeker. Slowly, it naturally happens. That's the beauty of it. Now, what happens? So it says, so without being united with knowledge, there's no meditation. So it means being united with knowledge, there's meditation. When there's meditation, one gains peace. What is this peace again? So again, as I told you, this peace means that in the midst of all the kinds of sorrow or disturbance or disruption that can happen, I do not become sorrowful. That is called peace. We do not become affected. We do not become disturbed. We do not become moved by that sorrow. We are quite steady. And that brings us that peace. And when we meditate, when we let the knowledge really become one with us, that's when we experience peace. That's when we experience a lot of peace. then what happens is ashantasya kutaha sukha. Means without this peace, where is happiness? So when we experience this kind of peace, this is happiness. The happiness of being established in our real nature. That is called happiness. Happiness means being established in who we really are. It's not, oh, I got something that I wanted. Oh, I enjoyed here. Oh, I enjoyed there. Happiness is being established in who we really are. Adi Shankaracharya ji gives a very nice definition of happiness in the commentary. I'm going to read it to you and I'll explain. He says, Indriyanam hi vishaya seva trishnataha nivritti. What is happiness? Happiness is freedom, nivritti, from the desire to enjoy sense objects. That's called happiness. What a beautiful definition. Huh? So what's happiness? Because we're established in ourselves, we are free from that thirst or desire to enjoy everything outside. We have no thirst from it. We are free from that trishna, free from that craving. That is called joy. That's called happiness. Because after all, what agitates the mind is desire. When desire comes, we cannot sit still. We cannot sit still. We have to move and move and move. This is what's called sukha. And he further says, Na trishnayam satyam sukhasya gandhamatramapi upapadyate. He says, there is no smell of joy in the desire for objects. Gandhamatramapi, there is no smell of joy. Don't kid yourself in the desire or pursuit for sense objects. You won't get it. This is the key to happiness. So very beautifully, Bhagavan Krishna has put it to us. He says, Na asti buddhi ayuktasya. Without that integrated mind and intellect, there is no buddhi, there's no knowledge. Nachayuktasya bhavana. Without being united with that knowledge, there's no meditation. Nacha abhavayataha shanti. Without meditation, there is no peace. And ashantasya kutaha sukham. Without peace, where is joy? Where is true happiness? It's not there. So hence, we see how important it is for all of us to try and be as integrated as possible. Spiritual life is really working on ourselves. It's working on ourselves and making sure that we live up to who we really are. That's where all of our effort. What do you do in spiritual life? You work on yourself. That's what you do. You and I, we become our own projects. And our interest, our time, and our effort is to work on ourselves so that we can abide in this wisdom. What happens if we don't do this? We'll just touch upon verse 67. Indriyanam hi charatam.
Indriyanam hi charatam.
Yanmano nuvidhiyate.
Yanmano nuvidhiyate.
Tadasya harati prajnam.
Tadasya harati prajnam.
Vayurnavamivambhasi.
Vayurnavamivambhasi.
Indriyanam hi charatam. Yanmano nuvidhiyate. Tadasya harati prajnam. Vayurnavamivambhasi. What does he say here? He says, listen, if we do not work on ourselves, Indriyanam hi charatam. Charatam, the wandering indriyas, the wandering sense organs. Yanmanaha anuvidhiyate, that mind following the wandering senses. Tadasya harati prajnam, that mind, it captures, it kidnaps the wisdom. That mind, which is following the wandering senses, it captures its wisdom. It kidnaps the wisdom. How? Vayuhu navam ivambhasi. Just like wind captures a boat in the water. It's a very, very beautiful metaphor. So, for the mind which follows in the wake of the wandering senses carries away this discrimination as the wind carries away a boat on the waters. So what happens here? It's like this. Let's say there's a boat in the water. There's a boat in the water, it's sailing, and the boat has to go east. And so all effort is to go east. Yeah, the captain is steering east, and the sails are up, and everyone's making their way east. All of a sudden, a strong gust of wind comes and the boat is turned the other way. It goes in a totally, totally different direction. You're steering east. You're steering the boat east, but the wind comes and now the boat is going west. And so what happens to this boat is the direction is lost. The direction is lost. Again, you steered another way. The effort also is lost. Now you're going the other way. And it's like you're helplessly kidnapped. You're just moving in a totally different direction. That's what happens. So we have we have three components. We have the sense objects, we have the mind, we have the intellect. And sometimes the mind will just follow the sense objects. It will see something and it will just say, I just want to watch it. Will hear something, I just want to listen to it. It will just get kidnapped by the sense objects. Even if the intellect was trying to drive it in a different direction, go to a different direction, do this, it gets kidnapped. It gets so kidnapped that it totally goes the opposite way of where we want it to go. And the best part is that these sense organs, they're so cooperative. They work together. You sit down and you want to watch a movie, let's say. So first the eyes will say, okay, I want to watch a movie. Then the ears will say about surround sound speakers. There has to be nice speakers, Then the sense of touch will say, we need nice pillows. Get pillows and everything. Get pillows and make yourself comfortable. And then sense of taste will kick in. Get some samosa, pakora, get some appetizers, let's eat. So they all work together. The intellect said you're supposed to go to work now, supposed to do something else. But the sense of sight said, nah, I just want to watch this. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes doesn't work. Because once the ears hear, then you lay on the couch, then you're gonna want food. That 2 minutes becomes 2 hours. Harati prajna, it takes away all of the wisdom that we have. Takes away the time, takes away the effort. It's all gone down. Just like that wind just captures the boat and draws it in a different direction. This is what happens. So he says, be very, very careful with our mind. And then he concludes this whole portion. We will read 68 and then we will conclude. Tasmad yasya mahabaho.
Tasmad yasya mahabaho.
Digrahitani sarvashaha.
निगृहीतानि सर्वशः
इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः
इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः tasya prajna pratishtita. So now he concludes this whole section about having mastery over the mind and senses. What he says is, tasmat, therefore, means therefore, keeping all of this in mind, yasya whose, yasya mahabhaho, he says, O Arjuna, whose indriyani indriyarthebhyaha, whose sense organs, indriyani, indriyarthebhyaha, from the sense objects, nigrihitani sarvashaha, who's controlled the sense organs from the sense objects, sarvashaha, completely, tasya prajna pratishtita. This being is one of steady wisdom. So therefore, O mighty armed, his knowledge is steady, whose senses are completely restrained from sense objects. This is a Sthitaprajna. So how does a Sthitaprajna walk and interact in the world? With their sense organs restrained or controlled from sense objects. So I will just summarize a little bit of what we did. And then I know there are some questions. I'll get to that. So today, what we saw now is a very important section, sadhana for a seeker. What we saw is that first is to have that mastery over sense organs and getting into the sense objects. And when we have that, our likes and dislikes, they become less also. We're less attracted and repulsed by the world. And what happens after that is the mind becomes prasada. The mind becomes calm and peaceful. Why is it necessary? Because that mind, which is calm and peaceful, can abide in this knowledge, can stay in this knowledge. And doing that, all of the sorrows go, which means sorrow can still be outside, but I don't become sorrowful. And what's the, contrary thought of this? He says, without that integrated mind and intellect, there is no knowledge. Without being united in knowledge, there is no meditation. Without meditation, there is no peace. And without peace, there is no joy or happiness. And happiness means freedom from the desire of sense objects. That's why it's called happiness. And therefore, he says, if this is not done, what happens is our wisdom gets kidnapped. It gets kidnapped, just like the wind kidnaps the boat and steers it in a completely different direction. Our wisdom gets kidnapped and we go in a completely different direction. And therefore, O seekers, he says, master the senses, master the mind, work on that, work on ourselves so that we can also become firmly rooted in this knowledge. Tasya prajna pratishtita. Okay, so if we are all making New Year's resolutions and wanting to change something, let's keep this in mind so that we can go deeper into this path. So I'll say the closing prayer, and then I know there are some what questions. Now I'll get to that. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.